How does a man answer when his own daughter calls him a nobody in front of cameras and then asks him for money like nothing happened? Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? 10 days after my daughter said it out loud at her graduation dinner, her message arrived asking for tuition. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I sent one short message, and everything stopped. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The restaurant was one of those places with exposed brick and Edison bulbs hanging from the ceiling, the kind where a burger costs $18 and comes on a wooden board instead of a plate. Zara picked it. She said it was where everyone was going after graduation. I showed up straight from the shop because she told me 7 o'clock and I didn't want to be late. My hands were clean, but there was still grease under my nails that wouldn't come out no matter how hard I scrubbed. I wore my good jeans and a button-down shirt I ironed that morning. It wasn't much, but it was what I had. The table was already full when I arrived. Zara's friends, most of whom I'd never met, her roommate Chelsea, a guy named Tyler who apparently worked in marketing, and Evan Merrick. 24, always wearing clothes that looked expensive but somehow sloppy at the same time. Her boyfriend of a year and a half, the guy who thought every moment needed to be recorded and narrated like he was hosting a documentary. He had his phone out before I even sat down. "And here comes Mr. Mellor," Evan said, angling the camera at me. "Zara's dad coming straight from the garage. Look at that. He's still got the work hands. That's authentic, right there." A few people laughed. I smiled because I didn't know what else to do. Zara didn't look up from her phone. I ordered a beer and a burger. The waiter looked at me like I'd asked for something off menu. Apparently, the burgers here had names like the Brooklyn and the Umami Bomb. I just pointed at the first one and said, "That's fine." The table was loud, everyone talking over each other, laughing at jokes I didn't understand, checking their phones every 30 seconds. Evan kept recording. Little clips of people toasting, of Zara showing off her diploma, of the appetizers arriving on those wooden boards. I sat at the end of the table and tried to stay out of the way. About halfway through dinner, Evan stood up with his phone. All right. Everyone shut up for a second. I want to do a thing." The table quieted down. Evan started panning the camera across everyone's faces. "So we're here celebrating the graduates, the people who actually made it, the ones who put in the work and came out on top. These are the future lawyers, the future marketers, the future influencers." He stopped on Zara. She was smiling, playing along. "And this," Evan said, zooming in on her, "is Zara Mellor, Bachelor of Arts in Communications, magna cum laude and absolute legend." Everyone clapped. Zara did a little mock bow from her seat. Then Evan turned the camera to me. "And this is her dad, Jared, who, fixes cars, I think?" More laughter. Not mean, exactly. Just casual, like I was part of the scenery. I nodded. "That's right." Evan grinned. "That's awesome, man. Blue-collar roots. Very grounded." He was about to move on when Zara spoke up. Her voice was loud, louder than it needed to be. "My dad's a nobody. Stop cheering." The table went silent for a beat. Then someone laughed. Then everyone laughed. Evan's camera was still on me. I could see the little red light recording. Zara wasn't looking at me. She was looking at her friends, grinning like she'd just delivered the punchline of the year. "I'm serious," she continued, her voice bright and performative. "Like, I love him, but come on. He fixes cars. That's not exactly a success story." More laughter. Someone said, "Oh my God, Zara." Chelsea covered her mouth, but she was giggling. Tyler raised his glass. Brutal honesty, I respect it. Evan zoomed in closer on my face. I could feel the lens on me, waiting for a reaction. I didn't give him one. I picked up my beer, took a sip, and set it back down. My hand was steady. My face was blank. Zara was still talking. "I mean, he's a good guy and whatever, but let's be real. He's not exactly someone you bring up at networking events. The laughter was louder now. Someone clinked a glass. I reached for my wallet, pulled out 2 20s, and set them on the table next to my half-eaten burger. Then I stood up. Nobody noticed at first. Evan's camera was still on me, but he was laughing too hard to say anything. Zara finally looked up. "Dad, where are you going?" "Home," I said. "It's a joke," she said, rolling her eyes. "God, you're so sensitive." I didn't respond. I just turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Evan say, "Wow, okay, that just happened," and more laughter. The parking lot was half empty and smelled like fryer oil from the vents. The air was cool, a relief after the noise inside. I walked to my truck, unlocked it, and sat in the driver's seat. I didn't start the engine right away. I just sat there, staring at the steering wheel. My hands were shaking, not from anger, not from sadness, from something deeper, something I didn't have a name for yet. Through the restaurant window, I could see the table. Evan was holding his phone up, replaying something. Everyone was leaning in to watch. Zara was laughing. I started the truck and drove home. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. It's always dark. I've lived here for 3 years, ever since the divorce, and I still haven't gotten around to putting up motion sensor lights like I keep telling myself I will. Inside, the air was stale. I opened a window in the kitchen and sat down at the table. My phone was in my pocket, vibrating. I pulled it out and saw 3 notifications, one from Zara. "Dad, seriously?" One from Evan's social media account, and one from a group chat I wasn't part of, but someone had added me to. The message preview just said, "Ha ha ha ha." I opened Evan's post first. The video was already up, 23 minutes ago. The caption read, "When your girl roasts her own dad and he can't take a joke." I pressed play. The angle was perfect. You could see my face clearly when Zara said it. You could see me sit there, not reacting. You could see me stand up and leave. The video had 43 likes already. I scrolled through the comments. Savage. She's not wrong, though. Imagine being that dad, lol. He really just walked out, ha 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 ha. I watched the video one more time, just to make sure I wasn't misremembering. I wasn't. Zara's voice was clear. Her face was bright, not drunk, not joking. She meant it. "My dad's a nobody. Stop cheering." I closed the app and set my phone face down on the table. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. Then I got up, went to the bathroom, and brushed my teeth. I didn't think about the video. I didn't think about Zara. I didn't think about Evan or the restaurant or any of it. I just went to bed. I woke up at 5:30 like I always do. The alarm on my phone was still going off when I reached over to turn it off, and that's when I saw the notifications. 64 new ones. I didn't open any of them. I just got up, showered, made coffee, and drove to the shop. The auto body garage where I work is on the east side of town, tucked between a laundromat and a check into cash. It's not much to look at from the outside. Faded paint, a rolling metal door that sticks in the winter, a sign that's missing 2 letters. But inside, it's clean, organized. Every tool in its place, every bay labeled, every job done right. I've worked here for 16 years, started as a general mechanic, worked my way up to lead technician, and now I basically run the floor. The owner, Ray, is 67 and spends most of his time in the office doing paperwork and yelling at the phone company. When I arrived, the first bay already had a Toyota Corolla in it. Routine oil change and tire rotation. I got to work. There's something calming about working on cars. It's straightforward, logical. You diagnose the problem, you fix it, and the car either works or it doesn't. No ambiguity, no interpretation, just results. By 8 o'clock, I'd finished the Corolla and moved on to a Dodge Charger with a bad alternator. The customer had been driving it with a failing battery for weeks, trying to squeeze a few more miles out of it before paying for the repair. Now it wouldn't start at all. People do that. Put off the fix until the problem gets worse. Then they act surprised when it costs more. Around 9, Lena Ortiz came by. Lena's been a customer for 6 years. She drives a 2004 Honda Civic with 200,000 miles on it, and she takes care of it like it's a show car. Oil changes every 3,000 miles, tire rotations on schedule, anything I recommend, she does. She's also one of the few people I'd call a friend. "Morning, Jared," she said, leaning against the counter in the waiting area. "Morning. What's wrong with the Civic?" "Nothing, actually. I'm just here for the alignment you recommended last month." "Good memory." She smiled. "I figured I'd better do it before you start charging me extra for ignoring you." I pulled the keys from the board and walked her car into the second bay. Lena followed, watching from the doorway. "You look tired," she said. "Late night." "Yeah." She crossed her arms. "Anything you want to talk about?" I glanced at her, then back at the car. Not really. She didn't push. That's one of the things I like about Lena. She knows when to let something sit. I finished the alignment in 40 minutes. The car had been pulling slightly to the right, and now it drove straight and smooth. I took it around the block to test it, and when I got back, Lena was still there, sipping a coffee she'd gotten from the gas station next door. "Perfect," she said when I handed her the keys. "You're a magician. Just did the job right." She paid in cash, like always, and handed me an extra 10. "For the test drive." "You don't have to do that." "I know." She left, and I went back to the Dodge. By lunch, I'd replaced the alternator and was running a diagnostic to make sure everything else was solid. That's when Ray came out of the office. "Hey, Jared, you got a second?" I wiped my hands on a rag and followed him inside. Ray's office is a cluttered mess of invoices, car manuals, and coffee cups he swears he's going to wash eventually. He sat down behind his desk and gestured at the chair across from him. "Sit." I sat. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, why?" "You've been quiet all morning, more than usual." I shrugged, just focused. Ray studied me for a moment, then nodded. "All right. Well, if you need a day or something, let me know." "I'm fine." "Good, because we've got a transmission job coming in tomorrow and I need you on it." "I'll be here." He nodded again, and I went back to the floor. The rest of the day passed in a blur of oil changes, brake pads, and tire replacements. By the time I locked up at 6, my back was sore and my hands were stained dark even after scrubbing them twice. I sat in my truck in the parking lot and finally checked my phone. 92 notifications now. Most of them were from numbers I didn't recognize, people sharing the video, people commenting, people laughing. I scrolled through Zara's messages. "Dad, come on, it was just a joke." "Why are you being like this? Everyone thinks you're overreacting. Can you at least respond?" I closed the messages and opened the video again. It had been shared 230 times. The likes were up to 800. I watched it one more time, just to see if I'd missed something. Some hint of irony, some sign that she didn't mean it. There wasn't. I saved the video to my camera roll, then deleted the app from my phone. Then I drove home. The house was dark again. I turned on the kitchen light, made a sandwich I didn't really want, and sat at the table. My phone buzzed once. A text from Zara. "Fine, be mad. Whatever." I set the phone face down and ate my sandwich in silence. Then I went to bed. The next 9 days passed quietly. I worked. I came home. I ate. I slept. I didn't check social media. I didn't respond to Zara's messages. I didn't think about the video. At least, I tried not to. On the third day, Lena came by the shop again. This time, she didn't have an appointment. "Just checking in," she said, leaning against the counter. "I'm fine." "You sure?" "Yeah." She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. She stood there for a moment, watching me organize receipts behind the counter. Then she picked up a wrench from the toolbox and turned it over in her hands like she was inspecting it. "You know," she said, "my daughter pulled something similar once. Not exactly the same, but close enough." I looked up. "She was in college," Lena continued. "Sophomore year. She came home for Thanksgiving and spent the entire weekend on her phone. Barely talked to me, barely looked at me. Then, the day before she left, she asked if I could send her $500 for books." She set the wrench down. I asked her what books cost $500. She got annoyed, said I wouldn't understand, said it was for her education and I should just trust her. "Did you give it to her?" I asked. "Yeah, I did. And you know what she said?" I shook my head. She said, "Thanks, Mom," and went back to her phone. Didn't even look up. Lena crossed her arms. It took me another year to realize she only came home when she needed something, and it took me another 6 months after that to finally say no. "What happened when you said no?" She got mad, stopped calling for a while. I thought I'd ruined everything. She paused. But then she started figuring things out on her own, got a part-time job, started budgeting, and eventually she called me just to talk. Not to ask for anything, just to talk. I nodded slowly. "I'm just saying," Lena said, "sometimes people need to feel what it's like when the answer is no." She left before I could respond. On the 5th day, Ray asked if I wanted to grab a beer after work. I said no. "You sure?" he asked. "You've been kind of quiet this week." "I'm fine, just tired." He studied me for a moment, then nodded. "All right, but if you need anything, let me know." "I will." He didn't bring it up again. On the 6th day, I was working on a brake job when my phone buzzed. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again. During my lunch break, I finally checked it. 3 messages from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, this is Chelsea, Zara's roommate. I just wanted to say I thought what she said at dinner was really messed up. You didn't deserve that. I'm sorry." I stared at the messages for a long time. Then I typed a response. "Thank you." She replied immediately. "She's been really quiet this week. I think she knows she messed up." I didn't respond to that. On the 7th day, the video had over 1,500 shares. I knew because someone from the shop, one of Ray's nephews who helped out on weekends, mentioned it. "Yo, Mr. Mellor, I saw that video of you. That's crazy, man." I was under a Honda replacing a tie rod. I didn't stop working. "What video?" "The one where your daughter roasts you at dinner. It's all over my feed." I torqued a bolt. "Yeah. That's messed up, dude. I felt bad for you." "Thanks." He stood there for a moment, waiting for me to say more. When I didn't, he wandered off. I finished the tie rod and moved on to the next job. On the 8th day, I got another message from Zara. "Dad, are you seriously going to ignore me forever?" I read it while eating lunch in the break room. The sandwich tasted like cardboard, but I finished it anyway. I thought about responding, about saying something, anything. But what would I say? That I was hurt? She already knew that. That I was disappointed? She didn't care. That I needed time? She'd just keep pushing. I set the phone down and went back to work. On the 9th day, I realized I hadn't thought about the video in almost 24 hours. I'd been too busy, too focused on work, too focused on doing things right. There was a Jeep Grand Cherokee in the bay with a transmission issue. The owner had been hearing a grinding noise for weeks and finally brought it in when the gears started slipping. I spent most of the morning diagnosing it. Transmission fluid was low, contaminated with metal shavings. The filter was clogged. The pan gasket was leaking. It was a mess. But it was fixable. I drained the old fluid, replaced the filter, installed a new gasket, and refilled the transmission with fresh fluid. Then I took it for a test drive. The grinding was gone. The gears shifted smooth. The Jeep drove like new. When I got back, the owner was waiting in the lobby. "How is it?" he asked. "Fixed." He smiled. "You're a lifesaver, man." He paid, tipped me $50, and drove off. I stood in the parking lot for a moment, watching the Jeep disappear down the street. That's when my phone buzzed. I pulled it out and saw Zara's name. It was a Tuesday. 10 days since the graduation dinner. I opened the message. "Hey Dad, tuition's due for the summer session. Can you send $800 by Friday? Thanks." I read it twice. No, how are you? No, I'm sorry about the other night. No acknowledgement of anything. Just the ask. Like usual. I stood there in the parking lot, staring at the screen. The sun was warm on my face. A car drove past. Somewhere down the block, a dog was barking. I thought about the last 9 days, the silence, the space, the clarity. I thought about the video, about Zara's voice, about the laughter. My dad's a nobody, stop cheering. I thought about the $47,000, the years of saying yes, the years of being treated like a wallet. And I thought about the message in front of me. Can you send $800 by Friday? Thanks. Like nothing had happened. Like the dinner didn't matter. Like I didn't matter. I scrolled up through our message history one more time. January. Need $400 for books. February. Can you cover my electric bill this month? It's $130. March. Rent's short. Can you send $600? April. I need $200 for a class project. May. Graduation expenses are insane. Can you send $300? And now, can you send $1,800 by Friday? Every message from her was a request. Every message from me was a confirmation. I scrolled back further. 2 years ago. 3 years ago. Back when we used to talk, she'd send me pictures of her dorm room, ask me how to fix a leaky faucet, tell me about a professor she liked or a test she was nervous about. I'd tell her about the cars I was working on, about Lena's terrible jokes, about Ray's dog that kept getting into the shop and stealing rags. We talked. And then, slowly, we didn't. I couldn't pinpoint exactly when it changed. Maybe when Evan showed up. Maybe when she transferred schools. Maybe when I stopped being a person and started being a utility. But it had changed. And now, standing in this parking lot, staring at this message, I realized something. It wasn't going to change back unless I changed it. I looked at the new message again. Can you send $1,800 by Friday? Thanks. Underneath it, Evan had reacted with a laughing emoji. He was in the group thread. He could see everything. I locked my phone and went back inside. Ray was in the office. I knocked on the door frame. "I'm taking a long lunch," I said. "Everything okay?" "Yeah. I just need to take care of something." "Sure. Take your time." I got in my truck and drove to the library. The public library is downtown, a low brick building that always smells like old paper and floor cleaner. I found a corner table in the study room and opened my laptop. I started with the college's website, tuition, payment schedules, financial aid, deadlines. I clicked through every page, reading the fine print, the FAQs, the policy notes at the bottom. It took over an hour, but I found what I needed. Summer session tuition was due by Friday at 5 p.m. If the payment wasn't received, enrollment would be paused immediately. No grace period, no extension. Financial aid didn't cover summer sessions unless the student applied separately, and the application deadline was in April, which meant Zara's summer enrollment depended entirely on me. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the screen. Then I closed the laptop and left. My next stop was the bank. I didn't need to go. I could have checked everything online, but I wanted to see it in person. I wanted it to be real. The teller was a young guy with a name tag that said, Rowan. "Can I help you?" "I need to see my transaction history, specifically payments to the college." He pulled it up on his screen. "How far back?" 4 years. He scrolled through the records, then turned the monitor so I could see. Every tuition payment was listed. Fall semester, spring semester, a few summer sessions, books, fees, emergency transfers, $47,000 total. That didn't include rent help, or the laptop, or the spring break trip, or the car insurance I paid for 2 years. Or the 50 other things I'd said yes to because I thought that's what fathers were supposed to do. Is there a problem with the account? Rowan asked. No, I said. I'm just checking. I left the bank and drove to the college. The campus was quiet. Summer session hadn't started yet, so most of the students were gone. I parked in a visitor spot and walked to the administration building. The financial aid office was on the second floor, down a hallway that smelled like industrial cleaner and old carpet. The woman at the desk was in her 40s, tired eyes, professional smile. Can I help you? I'm confirming the summer tuition policy. She nodded and pulled up the information on her computer. Summer tuition is due by Friday at 5 p.m. If we don't receive payment, the student's enrollment is paused. They can re-enroll once the balance is cleared, but they'll lose their spot in any closed classes. No exceptions? Not for summer sessions. Fall and spring have a 1-week grace period, but summer is strict. It's a state policy. What happens if the student doesn't pay at all? They're disenrolled. They'd need to reapply and pay the balance before they can register again. And if they don't have the money? She hesitated. Then they'd need to find another way. Loans, payment plans, scholarships. But those all take time to process. Thank you, I said. She smiled. Are you paying today? Not today. I walked back to my truck and sat in the parking lot. The campus was beautiful. Old brick buildings, tall trees, students walking between classes with backpacks and coffee cups. Zara was supposed to be one of them. Taking classes, learning, building a future. But she wasn't taking classes right now. She was asking me for money, and I had a choice to make. I could pay it, like I always did, like I'd done for 4 years, or I could say no. I pulled out my phone and opened my messages. Then I started typing. The first version was long. It explained everything. The dinner, the video, the years of being treated like an ATM, the way she stopped seeing me as a father and started seeing me as a transaction. I deleted it. The second version was shorter. It said, I needed space. That I couldn't keep funding her life while she treated me like I didn't matter. I deleted that too. The third version was one sentence. I need to think about this. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I deleted it and typed something else. 6 words. I read it 3 times. Then I locked my phone and drove back to the shop. I didn't send the message right away. I wanted to. I had it typed out, sitting there in the draft, but I didn't hit send. Not yet. Instead, I went back to work. There was a Subaru Outback in the 3rd bay with a failed head gasket. It was a long job, 6 hours minimum, and I was grateful for the distraction. I pulled the engine apart piece by piece, inspecting every component, checking for damage. The gasket had blown months ago, and the owner had kept driving it, hoping it would hold. Now the engine block was warped, and the whole thing needed to be resurfaced. People always wait too long. They ignore the warning signs, the overheating, the white smoke from the exhaust, the sweet smell of coolant burning off, and they convince themselves it'll be fine, that they can squeeze out a few more miles, a few more weeks before dealing with it. And then one day, the engine seizes completely, and what could have been a $300 fix becomes a $3,000 rebuild. I see it all the time. By the time I finished pulling the head off, it was almost noon. The block would need to go to the machine shop for resurfacing, which meant the job would stretch into next week. I made a note to call the owner and give him the bad news. Ray poked his head into the bay. How's it looking? Warped block, needs machining. He winced. Customer's not gonna like that. Customer should have brought it in when I told him to 6 months ago. Ray chuckled. Fair enough. I cleaned up the bay, wiped down my tools, and washed my hands. The grease came off, but the stains stayed. They always do. In the break room, I sat down with a sandwich I'd brought from home and finally looked at my phone. The draft was still there. 6 words, waiting. I won't be paying your tuition. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to add more, an explanation, a reason, something that would make her understand why I was doing this. But what would I say? That she hurt me? She'd tell me I was overreacting, that she took me for granted. She'd say I was being dramatic, that I deserved better. She'd laugh and say it was just a joke. No, explanations wouldn't matter. They never did. I deleted the extra sentences I'd started typing and left it at 6 words. Then I pressed send and turned the phone face down on the table. My hands were steady. My breathing was calm. I finished my sandwich, threw away the wrapper, and went back to work. The afternoon was busy. A Honda Accord needed new brake pads. A Chevy Silverado needed an oil change and tire rotation. A Nissan Altima came in with a check engine light that turned out to be a loose gas cap. Simple jobs, straightforward, no complications. By 5 o'clock, the bay was clean and the paperwork was filed. Ray locked the office and waved as he headed out. See you tomorrow, Jared. See you. I stayed another hour, organizing tools, sweeping the floor, making sure everything was in its place. When I finally locked up, the sun was setting, and the parking lot was empty except for my truck. I sat in the driver's seat and stared at the steering wheel. My phone was in my pocket, buzzing. I didn't check it. Not yet. I drove home slowly, taking the long way through town, past the diner where Lena and I sometimes ate, past the gas station where I filled up every Thursday, past the library where I'd spent the afternoon researching tuition policies. The streets were quiet. A few people walking dogs, a couple kids on bikes, normal life continuing like always. When I got home, I parked in the driveway and sat there for a minute before going inside. The house was dark. I flipped on the kitchen light and set my keys on the counter. My phone was still buzzing. I pulled it out and looked at the screen. 12 missed calls, 34 text messages, 3 voicemails, all from Zara, a few from Evan, one from a number I didn't recognize. I set the phone face down on the counter and opened the refrigerator. Leftover chicken from 2 nights ago, a half-empty carton of orange juice, some vegetables I kept telling myself I'd use. I pulled out the chicken, reheated it in the microwave, and ate it, standing at the counter. The whole time, my phone kept buzzing. When I finished eating, I washed the dish, dried it, and put it away. Then I picked up my phone and opened the messages. Zara's texts came in waves. 5:03 p.m. Did you seriously just do that? 5:04 p.m. Dad, answer your phone. 5:07 p.m. This isn't funny. 5:12 p.m. I have classes starting Monday. 5:15 p.m. I need this. 5:23 p.m. You're being ridiculous. 5:31 p.m. Everyone's saying you're overreacting. 5:45 p.m. Please just pay it. 5:52 p.m. Dad, please. 6:04 p.m. I'm sorry, okay? Is that what you want to hear? 6:18 p.m. You're ruining everything. Then Evan's messages started. 5:38 p.m. Yo, Mr. Mellor, this isn't cool. 5:41 p.m. She's your daughter, man. 5:55 p.m. You're really going to ruin her life over a joke? 6:10 p.m. This is messed up. I scrolled through them all without responding. Then I opened the voicemails. The first one was Zara, her voice high and frantic. Dad, what are you doing? Call me back right now. This isn't a joke. I need that money by Friday or I lose my classes. Call me. The second one was calmer, but tight with controlled anger. Okay, so you're ignoring me. Great. Real mature. I don't know what your problem is, but you need to fix this. I'm serious. The third one was Evan. Hey, Mr. Mellor, it's Evan. Look, I don't know what's going on between you and Zara, but she's really upset. She didn't mean anything by what she said at dinner. It was just a joke. Everyone jokes around like that. You're taking it way too seriously. Just pay the tuition, man. Don't be that guy. I deleted all 3 voicemails without finishing them. Then I turned off my phone completely and plugged it in to charge. The house was silent now. No buzzing, no ringing. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the wall. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel anything, really. Just clear. like I'd been carrying something heavy for years and finally set it down. I thought about the library, the policies I'd read, the deadlines, the consequences. I thought about the bank, the $47,000, the years of saying yes. I thought about Zara's message. Can you send $1-800 by Friday? Thanks. No acknowledgement, no apology, just the ask. Like I was a utility, a service, a function. I stood up, turned off the kitchen light, and went to bed. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. The next morning, I woke up at 5:30 and turned my phone back on. 68 notifications. I didn't open any of them. I just got dressed, made coffee, and drove to the shop. The morning was cool and quiet. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I parked in the empty lot and unlocked the front door. Inside, the shop smelled like motor oil and metal. I flipped on the lights and started my routine, checking the schedule, prepping the bays, organizing tools. By 6:30, Ray showed up. "You're here early," he said. "Couldn't sleep." He studied me for a moment. "Everything okay?" "Yeah." He didn't push. That's one of the things I appreciated about Ray. He knew when to leave things alone. The first job of the day was an alignment on a Chevy Tahoe. The owner had hit a curb 2 weeks ago and had been driving on it ever since. Now the front end shook every time he went over 40 miles per hour. I got to work, pulling the Tahoe into the bay and setting up the alignment rack. The measurements came back worse than I expected. The camber was off by 3 degrees, and the toe was pointing in opposite directions. It took an hour to adjust everything, recalibrate, and test. When I finished, the Tahoe drove smooth and straight. The owner picked it up around 9 and tipped me $20. "Feels like a new car," he said. "Just fixed what was broken." He drove off, and I moved on to the next job. Around 10, my phone started buzzing again. I ignored it and kept working. By noon, I'd finished 2 oil changes and a brake pad replacement. I was in the middle of a coolant flush when Lena walked in. She was carrying 2 cups of coffee and a brown paper bag. "Lunch delivery," she said, setting everything on the counter in the waiting area. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked over. "You didn't have to do that." "I know, but I wanted to." Inside the bag were 2 sandwiches from the deli down the street. Turkey and Swiss on wheat, my usual. We sat down on the bench and ate in silence for a while. Then Lena spoke. "You look different today." "Different how?" "I don't know. Lighter, maybe." I took a bite of my sandwich and didn't respond. "You want to talk about it?" she asked. "Not really." She nodded. "Okay." We finished eating and she stood up to leave. At the door, she turned back. "For what it's worth," she said, "I think you did the right thing." I looked at her. "You don't even know what I did." She smiled. "I can guess." Then she left. I went back to the coolant flush and worked straight through the afternoon. 3 more jobs came in, a timing belt replacement, a transmission fluid change, and a diagnostic for a check engine light that turned out to be a faulty oxygen sensor. By the time I finished, it was almost 6. Ray was locking up the office when I walked past. "Hell of a day," he said. "Yeah." "You sticking around?" "For a bit. I want to finish cleaning up." He nodded. "Don't stay too late." After he left, I swept the bays, organized the tools, and wiped down the workbenches. Everything in its place. Everything clean. When I finally locked up, it was almost 7. I sat in my truck and checked my phone. 92 notifications now. I scrolled through them without opening any. Most were from Zara, a few from Evan, one from Chelsea, Zara's roommate. Chelsea's message said, "Hey, Mr. Mellor, I don't know what's going on, but Zara's really upset. She's been crying all day. I think you should talk to her." I blocked Chelsea's number and kept scrolling. Zara's messages had evolved. The anger was fading, replaced by desperation. "Dad, please, I'm begging you. I don't know what to do. I can't lose these classes. Please just respond. I'll do anything. Evan's messages were more aggressive. You're being a terrible father. She's falling apart because of you. I hope you're proud of yourself. I locked my phone and drove home. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. I turned on the kitchen light and made a simple dinner, scrambled eggs and toast. While I ate, I thought about Dean Holloway's call, about the policies I'd read, about the deadline. Friday at 5 p.m. It was Wednesday now, less than 48 hours. I wondered if Zara would find a way to pay it herself, if she'd ask a friend, if she'd take out a loan. I wondered if she'd figure it out. Part of me hoped she would. Part of me didn't care either way. After dinner, I washed the dishes, dried them, and put them away. Then I sat down on the couch and turned on the TV. Some news program was on. I wasn't really watching, just letting the noise fill the silence. Around 9, my phone buzzed. Another message from Zara. I don't understand why you're doing this. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed a response. Yes, you do. 2 words. I pressed send and turned the phone face down on the coffee table. Then I went to bed. Thursday morning, I woke up to silence. No new messages, no missed calls. I made coffee, ate breakfast, and drove to the shop. The day was busy. A full transmission rebuild on a Ford Escape, a suspension overhaul on a Dodge Durango, an engine diagnostic on a Volkswagen Jetta that had been misfiring for weeks. I worked through lunch, and by mid-afternoon, I was covered in grease and sweat. Around 3, I got an email notification on my phone. It was from the college's bursar office, CC'd to me, because I was listed as the payer on file. Dear Jared Mellor, your summer enrollment has been paused due to non-payment of tuition. To re-enroll, please contact the bursar's office to clear your balance. Note that closed courses may no longer be available. I read it twice. Then I closed the email and got back to work. At 5:15, Zara called. I let it ring. She called again at 5:22, again at 5:40, again at 6:03. I didn't answer any of them. By the time I locked up the shop, I had 6 voicemails and 41 new messages. I deleted the voicemails without listening. I scrolled through the messages. The tone had shifted completely now. The anger was gone. The desperation was fading. What was left was something closer to shock. They paused my enrollment. Dad, I can't get into my classes. Everything I registered for is full now. I don't know what to do. Please. Evan's messages had stopped completely. I locked my phone and drove home. That night, I sat on my porch with a beer and watched the street. A few kids were riding bikes. A dog was barking somewhere down the block. The air was warm, and the sky was starting to fade from orange to purple. My phone was inside, still buzzing occasionally. I didn't check it. For the first time in 10 days, I felt calm. Not happy, not sad, just calm. Like the noise had finally stopped. Friday morning arrived with clear skies and a light breeze that carried the smell of cut grass from the neighbor's yard. I made coffee, drank it on the porch, and watched the street wake up. My phone had been silent all night. When I checked it, there were only 2 new messages. One from Zara, sent at 2:30 in the morning. I can't sleep. One from Dean Holloway, sent at 8:15. Jared, Zara came by this morning asking about emergency appeals. Just wanted to confirm, your position hasn't changed? I responded to Dean. It hasn't. He replied immediately, Understood. I'll let her know. I didn't respond to Zara. At the shop, Ray was waiting for me. Big job today, he said. That 68 Camaro I told you about. Owner wants a full suspension overhaul. Should keep you busy all day. Good. I pulled the Camaro into the bay and got to work. The suspension was original, 40-year-old parts that had been rattling and squeaking for years. The owner wanted everything replaced: shocks, struts, control arms, bushings, sway bar links. It was a 10-hour job minimum. I started pulling parts, inspecting each one as I went. The old components came off covered in rust and grime, decades of wear visible in every joint and bearing. Around noon, Lena stopped by. "You're working through lunch again," she said. "Big job." She set a sandwich on the workbench. "At least eat something." I washed my hands and sat down on a rolling stool. Lena leaned against the toolbox, arms crossed. "You doing okay?" she asked. "Yeah." "You sure?" "Yeah." She nodded slowly. "My daughter called me this morning." I looked up. "Yeah?" She wanted to tell me she got a promotion at work. Not a big one, but enough. We talked for an hour, about her job, about her life, about things that actually matter. She paused. 2 years ago, she would have called to ask for money. Now she calls to share good news. That shift didn't happen because I kept saying yes. It happened because I finally said no. I took a bite of my sandwich. "I'm not saying it was easy," Lena continued. "It wasn't. There were weeks where she wouldn't talk to me, where I wondered if I'd ruined everything, but I didn't. I just drew a line." She pushed off the toolbox and headed toward the door. "Anyway," she said, "I just thought you should hear that." After she left, I finished my sandwich and got back to work. The afternoon passed quickly. I replaced every suspension component, torquing each bolt to exact specifications. By 5 o'clock, the Camaro was sitting level, the new parts gleaming under the bay lights. I took it for a test drive around the block. The ride was smooth, tight, responsive, exactly how it should be. When I got back, Ray was standing in the doorway. "How's she drive?" "Perfect," he grinned. "You're a damn artist, you know that?" I parked the Camaro back in the bay and started cleaning up. Around 6, my phone buzzed. An email from the college. "Dear Zara Mellor, your emergency appeal has been reviewed and denied. Per college policy, summer enrollment requires full payment by the published deadline. To re-enroll, please contact the bursar's office to clear your outstanding balance." I closed the email. At 6:30, another message came through. This one was from Zara. "They denied my appeal." I stared at it. Then another message appeared. "I don't know what to do." Another. "Dad, please." I set the phone down and finished cleaning the bay, every tool back in its place, every surface wiped clean. By 7, the shop was spotless. I locked up and sat in my truck. The sun was setting. The parking lot was empty. My phone buzzed again. I picked it up. Another message from Zara. "I'm sorry. For everything. Please." I read it 3 times. Then I opened the reply box and typed, "You called me a nobody in front of a room full of people. You recorded it. You laughed. And 10 days later you asked me for money like nothing happened. I'm not your ATM. I'm your father. And fathers deserve respect." I pressed send. Then I turned off my phone, started the truck, and drove home. When I walked through the front door, the house was quiet. I made a simple dinner, ate it at the kitchen table, and cleaned up afterward. At 9 o'clock, I turned my phone back on. 73 new notifications. I opened them. Zara had responded immediately. "You're right. I was wrong. I'm so sorry. I took you for granted. I didn't think about how you felt. Please forgive me." Then, 20 minutes later, Evan and I broke up. Then, I deleted the video. Then, I'm looking for more work. Then, I'm going to figure this out. I read through them all. Then I typed one final message. "Good luck." 2 words. I pressed send, turned off my phone, and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up at 5:30, made coffee, and checked my phone one last time. One new message from Zara, sent at midnight. "Thank you for not giving up on me." I read it. Then I deleted the entire message thread, put my phone in my pocket, and walked out to my truck.